Session is about cutting through that noise and simplifying meal planning in a way that actually works in real life, right? We're going to focus on how to build meals that help you feel satisfied after eating, maintain steady energy throughout the day, and support blood sugar staying in range without any rules, restrictions, or even perfection. This isn't about following a strict meal plan or cutting out foods that you enjoy. It's about learning how to be flexible, right? A repeatable approach that you can come back to day after day without it getting boring, even when life gets busy. Alrighty. All right, so here is what we will be covering today. First, we'll talk about why meal planning matters, especially when it comes to blood sugar stability, hunger levels, and day-to-day energy. Then we'll break it down to what a balanced meal actually looks like and how combining foods intentionally can help you feel fuller for longer while reducing blood sugar spikes and blood sugar crashes. We'll also walk through practical planning strategies, including grocery shopping, quick meal ideas, and how to stay flexible on busy or even unpredictable days. And finally, we'll wrap up with an important mindset shift that makes meal planning sustainable long term, focusing on progress over perfection. Alrighty. So, why meal planning matters? Right? Blood sugar doesn't just respond to what we are eating, right? It also responds to patterns in our day-to-day life. Like when we are skipping meals or having delayed meals or heavily unbalanced meals, right? Blood sugar can swing more dramatically. These swings often show up as feeling tired, irritable, shaky, overly hungry, or stuck in a cycle that is highs and then crashes. Meal planning creates predictability. It helps your body know when fuel is coming and what kind of fuel to expect. This predictability supports steadier blood sugar, more consistent energy throughout the day. And planning also reduces decision fatigue, right? Instead of constantly asking ourselves, what am I going to eat next? What is the next meal? When am I going to cook the next meal? You already have a general plan to fall back on, right? That can make meals feel calmer, easier, less stressful. And it's important to remember meal planning doesn't mean eating the same foods every day. It just means having a flexible framework that you can adjust based on your preferences, your schedule, your cravings that day, if you're having other activities that day that you want to plan around. All right, let's go over to the next slide. All right, so what does balance really mean? When we talk about balanced meals, we're not talking about perfect portions. We're not talking about calorie counting. We're not talking about exact numbers. A balanced meal usually includes carbohydrates, proteins, and fats. Sometimes also fiber when available or when possible. Carbohydrates are going to raise blood glucose, right? They're going to raise our blood sugar, but they're also your body's main source of energy. Proteins and fats are important to be paired with those carbs to slow down digestion and to help reduce those spikes from the carbohydrates and help you feel full and satisfied for longer. Now, fiber is important and it is found in vegetables, fruits, whole grains, beans, seeds, which are all carbohydrates. And these slow the absorption and they support digestion and gut health, right? They slow down the absorption of this sugar or these carbohydrates into the bloodstream. Instead of avoiding these carbs, the goal is to pair them with proteins, with fats, with fibers so that they work more gently and more predictably in your body. Righty. Next slide. All right. So building a plate that keeps you full. This is one helpful visual tool, as we can see here. This is just the plate method per se. So we want to start by filling half of the plate with non-starchy vegetables. Think about your things like your leafy greens, broccoli, bell peppers, cauliflower, carrots, asparagus, whatever vegetable that you like. Trying to avoid those coming from things like corn or potatoes, which are heavier in starches, right? These non-starchy vegetables add volume and fiber without causing sharp blood sugar rises. Um, so we want to have the majority of our plate containing those. Next, we want to include a source of protein, things like chicken, fish, eggs, tofu, beans, even things like Greek yogurt, right? Dairy products. Protein plays a major role in fullness and it does help digestion. And we really should be having some protein with every meal that we have, or at least try to. After our protein, then we want to add our carbohydrates, right? The rice, the potatoes, the pasta, a piece of bread, a piece of fruit, right? We want to have those, and especially if we really like them, we want to have them. But portion awareness matters. This is why we recommend a fourth of our plate, being those carbohydrates, and having them also contain proteins or fibers, or combining them with proteins and fibers to help manage the response of that blood sugar spike, etc. Now, what's missing in this plate would be just some fats, right? Unless we're having a higher fat protein, we do want to include things that contain healthy fats like olive oil or avocado or nuts or seeds. These fats are going to help with the satisfaction of the meal. They're going to help you stay full for longer, and they're going to help you keep sustained energy levels as well as sustained blood sugar levels. Right, so this type of meal or this type of plate is going to help balance help support fullness, balance and steadier energy levels for the rest of the day or at least the hours leading on to your next meal. Now, timing of the meal also matters. When you eat can be just as important as what you eat. So skipping meals, waiting too long between meals, these things can lead to low blood sugar or even intense hunger, right? Which we know often leads to overeating or making choices that we wouldn't have wanted to make otherwise. So eating regular, or at least roughly at consistent times can help prevent extreme hunger and large blood sugar swings. Most people do well eating every 3 to 5 hours, but those needs can vary based on individuals, based on your needs, calorie needs, your activity levels, etc. Including protein early in the day with breakfast, for example, can help reduce cravings and energy crashes through the day, and it can help have a more steady blood sugar throughout the day as well. Remember, the goal is to fuel your body before you're overly hungry, not after you've already felt depleted of energy. Mm, all right, so planning without over planning, right? We don't want to have these planning sessions become overwhelming or have them feel like too much, right? Meal planning doesn't have to mean spending hours in the kitchen or following a super rigid weekly menu or not being able to have other things that you want to have. Simple planning might just look like choosing a few go-to breakfast items, a few go-to lunches or dinners that you enjoy, and rotating them on a regular basis. It can mean that you're batch cooking one or two proteins for the week, or you're even keeping quick, balanced options on hand for busy days. Right? It's all about, remember, having that planned out, right? So even having backup meals, this is especially important, right? Having something easy available like frozen meals, simple sandwiches, pre-prepared ingredients, all this can really prevent last-minute decisions driven by hunger or stress. All right, so planning is about making the easier choice the available choice, right? Now, what about snacks? Snacks can be very helpful, right? Especially if there's a long gap between meals or increased physical activity. For some individuals, they might be their job might be very active, right? And so they might need a snack in between meals. The key to these is always going to be balanced, just like our meals. Snacks that include a protein or fats, these tend to keep you satiated for longer, and you might also see that they're not going to cause a really high blood sugar spike. They're going to keep your blood sugar more steady. Examples include apple slices with peanut butter, for example, cheese with whole grain crackers, yogurt with berries, or even things like hummus with vegetables. Now, snacks are not a failure or a problem. Remember, they can be strategic, they can be helpful. They are simply a way to fuel your body consistently and prevent big swings. All right, now real life, right? Putting this into real life. So no meal plan is going to work perfectly every day, right? We have to be realistic with ourselves. We want to be flexible with ourselves. There might be traveling some weeks of the year. There might be social events some weekends of the year. You might have more stressful periods at work through the year. Sometimes we get sick. Right. And we get low energy days. This is all going to happen. This is normal. So instead of aiming for always perfect meals, always staying super strict with ourselves, we want to focus on making, again, the most or the best available choice in the moment, right? Thinking, what can I do today that is going to be better than what I would have maybe had to do last minute if I hadn't planned for it, if I hadn't thought about it beforehand, right? So one higher carb meal when we're traveling, for example, or an off-plan day does not undo progress. Blood sugar management is built on patterns over time, not a single meal, not a single day. Flexibility is what will allow meal planning to be sustainable, right? I talk about this, for example, with holidays. It's just one day. It's not going to undo any of the progress that you've been working on the months prior to that. Right. So this again goes to progress over perfection, right? Oh, did I skip over? Oh yeah. So progress over perfection. Again, meal planning is going to work best when it supports your lifestyle, not when it adds pressure to your day to day. So small improvements like adding protein more often, starting the day with protein, eating more regularly, having a little bit more balance with each meal, one at a time, more consistently. It all adds up over time. There's no single right way to eat. The best way to eat, the best plan is the one that you can come back to, that you can return to, that feels safe, even after a day that didn't go as planned, right? Progress will always beat perfection. All right, I feel like I'm skipping slides. Wait, okay, sorry, there we go. All right, so we're coming to the end of our presentation, right? So some key takeaways here to wrap up. Remember this, remember that balanced meals help you stay full, energized, and more in range with your blood sugar. Meal timing and consistency matter more than being perfect, right? Flexibility also matters just as much. Meal planning doesn't have to be complicated. It just has to be something that you can stick to and come back to, right? We want it to be simple for it to be effective. And every meal is just another opportunity to support your body. Focus on patterns, not perfection. Give yourself credit for every step forward. All right, and I think we've come to the end. So I'll leave some time here for any questions. If there are any questions, you can unmute yourself, or I think you can put them on the questions tab or on the chats tab. Right, so one question here. Are carbs bad for blood sugar? I think this is something that there's a lot of misinformation about, right? Carbs do affect blood glucose. They will raise our blood glucose, but they're not bad, right? They are our body's primary fuel source. So what we want to do to minimize how much effect they'll have on our blood sugar is by pairing them. We just want to pair them with proteins, like I said, with fats, if possible, with fiber, right, to manage their impact. So we can still get the fuel, we get the benefit of the carbs, but we avoid maybe the spike that it can cause on that blood sugar. But they're not bad. All right, now another question. I hear this a lot. I am not hungry for breakfast or I'm not hungry for dinner. What if I don't feel hungry at regular times, right? So we have to remember that we want to be consistent with something before it can become a habit because appetite can vary. So being consistent, gentle consistency, balanced meals, they will help with your hunger cues over time, right? So that our body starts to get used to, okay, around this time is when I'm usually eating. So our hunger signal starts to get adapted to that timing. And over time, we can see a bit more consistency with those meals, even if they're small meals. Any other questions? No more questions? Okay. Well, it was my pleasure to be here today. Thank you for everyone who attended. And if you have any other questions that pop up later, feel free to email them to asktheRD@myehcs.com. Have a wonderful day, everyone. Thank you.